There's a movement spreading through our country. Perhaps you've seen it. It's a movement that is one of downsizing. The movement that I speak of is the tiny house movement. Have you seen the show? Tiny House Nation. I'm always fascinated with the show. I don't watch much TV because usually there's not much on the television these days, but I am fascinated with that program, Tiny House Nation. These people who choose to downsize to the point where they move from a house that's 12, 15, 18, 2,400 square feet, and they decide to move into a tiny house of 200 or 300 or at the most 500 square feet. Imagine that. And even though there's this movement to go smaller, to embrace tininess, why, I'm still fascinated at those same individuals who want to now live in a space that isn't very big. But even though they want to be in that tiny house, it's amazing how they want to create drawers and storage, and they want all these kinds of things to stuff as much stuff into that tiny house as they possibly can. It's amazing, isn't it? But actually, it's not so amazing. It's just human nature. It's who we are. As human beings, we are about owning. We like to own things. Because once we own something, why, it becomes ours. And once we own something, why, it not only becomes ours, but it gives us a sense of safety. Owning something gives us security. The joy of making that last payment on a vehicle, the joy of making that final payment on a house, whether it be large or tiny. Why, the security that comes with that, the sense of safety that, now I have my own roof over my own head and nobody can take it away from me. Why, there's something about that sense of owning that's deep down within each and every one of us. We need to own. But the problem oftentimes is, once we own, we allow that which we own to own us. It seems to be where this man is that comes to Jesus in the gospel today. He's followed all the commands. He's done everything right. Kind of like you and I. You're supposed to laugh there. Thank you. But he's done everything right, except one thing. Jesus says, go, sell what you have, give it to the poor, then come and follow me. But notice what Jesus does before he even invites this man to take the next step to discipleship. Notice what Jesus does, what Mark tells us that he does. Why? He looks at him. Mark tells us that Jesus looks at him and then says, can you do one more thing? Can you go, sell what you have, give it to the poor, and then come and follow me? It's the look. The look that I bet was a look of compassion. It was a look of love. It was a look of challenge. It was a look of opportunity. And nonetheless, why, there's something about this man that comes to Jesus and wants to know the key to eternal life. And why, Jesus is handing it to him. He's offering him that key that he so desires in terms of what he has to do to inherit eternal life. And yet, there's something about the look that, for whatever reason, the man, why, Mark tells us his face fell. It fell, and he walked away because he had so many possessions. Jesus in the gospel today is inviting the man in the gospel and you and I to realize that the key to eternal life is this: to live in time, but to be centered in eternity. To live in time, as you and I do, which involves, yes, being human, and it involves owning, and it involves accumulating, and it involves needing that sense of security and safety that we so oftentimes need in our lives. It involves all that. It means that you and I are here for a certain amount of time. We live in this time. But while we live there, we must be centered on eternity. So how do we do that? Well, perhaps a story might help us. There was a tourist who traveled to Europe, and he had heard about a wise rabbi. And so he went to visit this wise rabbi and discovered when he got there how simple this rabbi was living. Why? He lived in a single room. And there were a few books on some shelves around the walls. And there was only a table and a bench. And the tourist looked at the rabbi and said, "Rabbi, where is all of your furniture?" To which the rabbi answered, "Where is yours?" And the tourist said, "Mine? I'm just a visitor here." "So am I," replied the rabbi. "I'm just a visitor here." "So am I," replied the rabbi. My friends, I believe therein lies the key. The key to living in time, yet being centered in eternity, is to recognize that you and I, we're visitors here. And we're only here for a very short period of time. And while we're here, we can do a few things. We can travel down the path of owning and accumulating and having this and eventually being owned by it, because of course, once we own something, then we got to protect it, and then we got to secure it. We got to do all those things, and so all of a sudden it owns us, and we can go down that path, or we can simply live in this time, enjoying the gifts that God gives to us, and then always being centered on eternity, always thinking about why we are here and where we are headed, or at least where we hope to head. It's what Jesus was inviting the man in the gospel today to do, and it's what he is inviting you and I to do. And to have the mindset of a visitor is an incredible thing, because think about it, when you visit somebody's home, what kind of a stance do you and I have? Certainly it's one of gratitude. Gratitude that this person has invited us in. Gratitude for whatever it is they provide for us, a cup of coffee, a bar, a cookie, perhaps even a full meal. We're grateful for their friendship and their presence to us as they invite us in as visitors, but also a visitor is one who is always willing to help out, who's always willing to serve, who's always willing to be attentive to those who have invited them in. And a visitor is always one who walks with humility and with humbleness, grateful for what these hosts provide for us. So we come to this table, and Jesus invites us in. He invites us as visitors. He invites us as friends. He invites you and I to do one more thing. But as he does it, he looks at us in our eyes, he looks at our face, he looks at us with love. And he says to you and I, can you do one more thing? Can you let go while you live in time and center yourselves with eternity? Because if you and I can, why then we hold the key to eternal life.